Hi there, and welcome to the What's New webinar for the latest release of Mission Control. Version 1.41 will be released onto the App Exchange on Monday, the 11th of September. Let's jump in and take a look at what's new. So you can see here from the list that we've got a number of new major features coming, as well as a few minor enhancements. So running down the major features, we've got a brand new console. We've also redesigned all of the email templates that get sent out. There's been some enhancements to the non-working day and holiday functionality. We've also added in the ability to maintain your own custom status field rather than using the core status values. We have the ability to force a recalculation of all of the project financials on an individual project. And we've made a number of enhancements to the scheduler, the whiteboard, and the Gantt chart. And we've also added in the ability to archive milestones. So for those bigger projects that might be running for quite some time, you can clear the milestones and actions off as you go. And we've also added in some additional functionality into the checklist items. So looking at those minor enhancements, we've got the ability to create new records directly from the project overview page. We've added a couple of additional features to the Cirrus Insight inbox app. We've also introduced a new component onto the trackpad that allows you to create new actions. And the checklist items component will now be available via Salesforce One. And we've made a couple of changes to the time logger and the chatter feed rollup. So let's jump in and take a look at these new features in a bit more detail. So the new Mission Control console is going to be centralized across both Lightning and Classic. So previously, if you were flicking between Lightning Experience and Salesforce Classic, you would have noticed that there was actually a different Mission Control console presented. So excited to see that it's actually going to be the same across both UIs going forward. And the main things that we've introduced to the new console are by giving you more functionality. So ultimately, you've got access to create more records directly from the console. You can access a lot more functionality, but also we've given you more flexibility. So we found that a lot of customers weren't actually giving some of their end users access to the console because it did provide you access to some settings and control around what certain automated features were happening, and they didn't necessarily want to put that into the hands of every single end user. So what we've done is actually introduced four pads to the console. So we're going to have the launch pad, the progress pad, the management pad, and the control pad. And similarly to the project overview page, you're going to be able to control which of those pads each of your users have access to. So for example, all of the settings and automated features can be switched on or off via the control pad, and you can restrict that to certain users within the business. So let's jump in and take a quick look at the console. So you'll see here I'm on the Mission Control console, and I'm currently on the Launch pad. And you'll see I've got access to create a new project. I can select an existing project to perform a clone, and you can see I can create a number of different records, whether that's a role, a team, or a skill, or even tax rates and billing events. So if I click through onto the progress pad, you'll see that I then have access to all of the key parts of the system that allow me to progress my projects forward. So I can go through to the whiteboard or log time via the timesheet or submit my expenses. So then from a management perspective, if I go into the management pad, I'm able to access a project overview for a specific project. I can jump into the Gantt chart. I can go through to the resource planning on the scheduler or take a look at the PMO dashboard. And then onto the control pad, you'll see this is where we've got all of the automated settings. So scheduling the daily digest, setting up action progress tracking, custom settings, and my Gantt chart logo, and all of the automated features that we have, and along with the billing information as well. So the benefit being, obviously, we might not want everyone to have access to the control pad, but we're quite happy to give end users access to the other three pads there. So we can actually control access to each of these individual tabs at the individual role level. So I'll show you here. If I go onto the role object, you'll see I've got a list view for role permissions for the console. And what I'm able to do is go down an individual level. I can set the default tab that I want to appear when that person initially visits the console, and I can also choose which of the tabs that they actually can see. So, for example, if I set that to false, click on save, and then I'll just go back to the console and refresh. And then you'll see that I no longer have access to the control pad. So you can control that at an individual role level. So I'm just going to add that back. So just to finish off, what we've also got access to is the trackpad. So if the individual role has access to view that trackpad, they'll be able to see that alongside the console there. So just to finish off on the console, obviously you have the ability to control access to each of these tabs. Now there will be an install script that runs on initial upgrade that will go and set each of these fields to true. So upon initial upgrade, everyone will be able to see all 4 tabs, and they'll all have the console default tab set to Launchpad. That's to ensure that everyone can see the mission control console when you initially do the upgrade, and then obviously you can come in and make the changes as required. Within Mission Control, we've got 3 main email templates that are used. We have the daily digest, we have the new action notification email, and the dependent action notification email. All 3 of those templates have gone through a major redesign, ultimately to provide you with more information, as well as a new design, and you've now got the ability to customize the branding of those templates. So let's jump in and take a look at those templates in more detail. So on here you can see I'm looking at the daily digest. So there's a lot more information presented to you in this digest. So I can see obviously who it's been sent to. Gives me a real snapshot summary of what I've got going on today, and then I get the detail of all of today's actions, and I can quickly see whether I'm the owner or the contributor. Scrolling down, I can see a list of any new actions that have been assigned to me within the last 24 hours. And then I get the pending action. So I get this like window into the next 5 days as to what's going on from my perspective. And then carrying on down, I can see my overdue actions, again showing me how much effort is remaining and giving me an indication of whether I'm the owner or a contributor. So obviously a long list of overdue actions there, but if I carry on down, I also get to the bottom where I get an approval summary. So this shows me any time logs, expenses, or holidays that are in the system waiting for me to review and approve them. So I get that daily reminder via the daily digest. So looking at the new action notification, so this is an email that will come out to the action owner, and it will now also go to any contributors that have been added to the action as well. So what this is showing me is obviously again the summary information, the start and end dates, and the efforts scheduled, and then I can see the actual action, the details of it, what project it relates to, and I can see whether I'm the owner or if I'm a contributor, and I get some detailed information as to the scheduled billable and non-billable hours, any notes, and then I can also see my checklist items and who might be responsible for those. So taking a look at the dependent action, so this is an email that comes out to the owner of a child action when the parent action is marked as complete. So it just gives you a notification that the parent has been marked as complete, so you're now able to start work on your action. So here's the detail of the parent, and here's the detail of my action. So again, I can see whether I'm the owner or I'm a contributor, and what's got to be done on the action. So one of the requests that we had to consider while redesigning all of these email templates was the ability to provide our customers with the feature that they could brand this email themselves. So you can see obviously how we've got the mission control logo here on all 3 emails. Now you can actually override that with your own logo, and it actually pulls in the logo that you set up on the mission control console for your Gantt chart. So I've got another example of the daily digest here, and you can see how I've overwritten the mission control logo with my own company logo. So I'm just going to jump into the into mission control to show you where you would actually go to do that. So on the console, what I need to do is actually go to the control pad. And then in the Gantt chart settings, I just need to make sure I've selected the relevant folder, chosen the file that I want to use, and set that logo. So that logo will actually be placed onto any Gantt chart PDFs, but it will also be used on those email templates as well. We've made a number of enhancements to the holiday object and the non-working day logic within the system to better support customers that offer their staff sort of flexible working hours, or where they may need to assign the odd action onto a weekend. So three key things that have been added into the system are the ability to have recurring holidays. You also have the ability to allocate actions onto a day where there is already a holiday, and you can also allocate actions to a non-working day. So let's jump in and take a look at a few examples of that. So first of all, to support staff that operate on a flexi hours basis, we've included the ability to set up recurring holidays. So for example, if we've got Carey here, you can see that she's setting up a half day. She's going to take a half-day annual leave, and that's going to happen on the 8th of September. We can see it's annual leave, it's half a day, and it's 4 hours. But she's set that up to be recurring, and so that's going to recur on a weekly basis, and it's going to recur once. So ultimately, that will go in for this week and for next week. So once we click on save, that would automatically create both of those holidays. So if we go onto the scheduler and take a look, you'll see how the half day appears on both the 8th and the 15th. So the benefit of that is obviously, if for example, if we've got an employee that's only working 4 hours every Tuesday, they're able to create a recurring holiday that shows they're on holiday for 4 hours each Tuesday. And ultimately, they would simply create one holiday record, set that to be recurring, and then obviously that would be recurring for as long as they'd set. Now, the other enhancement is that you can now actually allocate actions onto a day that already has a holiday allocated to it, which is something that previously wasn't possible. So you can see here how I've got a half day. So basically, where the holiday does not account for the full day, and what we're doing there is comparing it to the hours per day setting. So in this example, I've got a 4-hour holiday assigned to Carey. We know we are set up to be doing 8 hours per day. So if I go and grab this action and drop it onto the 8th, so I can now actually save that, and that will actually allow me to save that record onto that day, knowing that she's obviously only on half a day's holiday there. And in a similar fashion, we've had clients. Obviously, they're wanting to use the non-working day functionality, so where they don't work on a Saturday or a Sunday, but on the odd occasion they might need to assign an action onto a weekend. So we've built in the ability to override that non-working day functionality. So you can see here I'm building a new action on a project using the Create Actions page here, and I've already got it pre-populated. So I'm going to be traveling for the design workshop, and I want to be traveling on Sunday. So what I can do, knowing that I've got my organization business hours set up to where I'm not working on weekends generally, I can come along and now I can tick this box to say ignore the non-working days rule. So when I create that action now, I'll create that, and then I'll just go back to the scheduler and refresh that. And you'll see now I've been able to actually assign that action onto the weekend, purely because I've ticked that box to ignore the non-working day rule. We've added in a new feature that we're referring to as the custom status field on the action object. So the existing status field that we're now referring to as the core status field, comes with out-of-the-box pick list values of planned, in progress, on hold, complete, and cancelled. And there's some automated features within Mission Control that will keep the milestone and project up to date based on the status value of the actions. But what we've found is some customers want to replace some of the values or add additional values to that action status field. And in some instances, amending these values meant that the automated functions we had operating in the background would not operate correctly. So therefore, in order to support customers with a requirement to have a different pick list values in their action status, we've introduced this new custom status feature. So this is a completely separate field that will allow you to create your own set of status values on the action object. And in order to maintain the automated features that happen within Mission Control at the milestone and project, you'll be able to map your custom values to the core status values on the action. And then whenever you update your custom status value, the core status value will be updated as well based on the mappings that you've put in place. And that in turn will then update the milestone and project, and they'll be continued to be updated based on that existing feature within tied to the core status. So to use the custom status feature within Mission Control, you just need to go to the control panel, control pad on the console. So let's jump in and take a look at how it all works. So on the Mission Control console, on the control pad, what I need to do is scroll down into the project automation settings section, and there's a new setting here called Disable Core Status Field and Enable Custom Status Field. So when I tick that box, you'll see that that there's a button that appears that allows me to access the page that lets me map my status values. So if I click on that, so I've already defined some values for my custom status, and then what I'm going to do is actually map them to my core status field. So obviously if I've got a to-do, it's going to be planned. If I'm working on that, I'm going to say it's in progress. So I'll just quickly map the rest of these. So now that I've done that, I can click on save, and that will actually map all of those fields. And if I save that, and then I'll save the overall settings as well. So just get confirmation there that that's been done. So now whenever I go to one of the key pages, such as the whiteboard or the create actions page or any of those other action-oriented pages, I'll see my custom status values instead of those core status values. So you can see here, obviously, to start with, nothing has been assigned a value, so I would need to obviously just transfer those over to the relevant status. Now, if I want to revert back to the core status field, it's again just simply go to the control panel and uncheck that box and save, and then that will revert back to my core status field. So one of our new features that I know a few of our customers are going to be very excited to see is the Force Financials recalculation feature. So previously it was not an easy task to recalculate the financials of a project if you wanted to change the billing rate or the cost rate once the entire project had been built out. So for example, say I'd created a project with a billing rate and a cost rate of standard, and then I proceeded to create all of my milestones and actions, only to then realize I should have set the billing rate to role based. I would have actually needed to go through every single action and force a recalculation by changing a value such as the hours scheduled billable field, and it was even more laborious if there were already time logs entered as well, as they would have all needed processing too. So to support this requirement, we've added in a new checkbox onto the project object called Forced Financials Recalculation, which you can see here on the screen, and obviously that will need to be added to your page layout for you to be able to access this. So when you click this checkbox and save the record, all actions and time logs will be recalculated. So ultimately, what you'll be able to do is quickly switch between standard or role-based or skill-based rates when you need to, and then just force that financials recalculation process. So one thing to be aware of is the actual process runs asynchronously, which means it will run in the background after you've saved the record. So you'll know when the process has been completed once you refresh the page. You'll then see that the actual field has been reset to false, indicating that the actual process has completed. And one other thing to note, that if for some reason the actual recalculation process fails, the person that initiated that request will receive an email just letting them know of the failure. So, for example, one reason you might receive that failure email notification is if you've switched from role-based or standard over to a skill-based project and you haven't actually added the skills to each of your actions, then when it tries to update those actions to do the recalculation, it would obviously hit the validation rule enforcing the requirement of a skill. So in that instance, you'd be receiving an email notification. But other than that, I'm pretty sure it'll be a useful tool for many people in being able to quickly recalculate the financials on the overall project. A cool new feature that we're adding in as intermission control is a component that we're referring to as the project launcher. So this is something that allows you to build the framework of a new project by putting in place the project and the milestones very quickly, and then launching that into a new project. So the project launcher is available from the console and from a global action within Lightning Experience. So let's jump in and take a look at how quickly you can get a project set up using the project launcher. So from the console, on the Launchpad, if I come to the New Project tile and click on the New Project button, that's going to open up the launcher ready for me. And what it allows me to do is build out the project name. I can also specify the project budget. I also have the ability to add in as many milestones as I need. So I can add a few to the list, specifying the milestone name. I can put in some key information here like the deadline and the budget. So I'll quickly launch a new project now. So once I'm ready there, I've got all of that information filled in. Click on launch, and that's going to go away and create that project for me. So there's the milestones created and the project, and then I would just have to jump into the create actions page to build out the detail. Now, that project launcher, as I mentioned, is available from the console, but you can also access it within Lightning Experience from the Global Actions. So I've already added it to my Global Actions publisher layout, and you can see I've got access to the project launcher there. So if I click it from there, it's going to open up in a dock down here, and you can see I've got the same functionality where I can put in the project name, budget, and the milestones. So a couple of ways of quickly launching a new project there. Another new component that we're introducing, that we're referring to, is the Milestone Loader. So the Milestone Loader lets you take the milestone cloning feature to an absolutely new level. So you're able to actually select and load in multiple milestones in one go, including all of their actions, contributors, and checklist items. So I know one particular client is absolutely dying for this to be released, and the reason being they actually initiate the project record through an automated process elsewhere in their system. So what they start with is just a flat project with no information beneath it, but they know they're going to want to go off and grab a bunch of milestones from an existing project that they use as a template. Equally, it might be that I just manually create a project without any milestones or actions, and knowing that I want to pull in some various milestones and actions from a couple of different projects. So the milestone loader is going to let me do all of that. So let's jump in and take a look at how that works. So what I'll do first of all is just quickly launch a new project. So again, back on the console, I'm just going to click on New Project. Now this time I'm going to remove my milestone because I don't want any milestones added. I'm just going to call this Empty Project, and I'm going to set a budget of $6,000. So launch that. So that's my flat project. There's no information underneath that. So now you'll see I've got this access to this load button. So what I'm going to do is go off and search for another project. So click on load, and I'm going to be searching for a project that I know is called a Aprika website build. So if I load that in, that's going to pull back all of the milestones that are existing on that project. Now, what I can do is pick and choose which ones I want, or I can just come along and say, actually, I want all three milestones, and I want the first action on the first milestone to be scheduled today, or obviously I can change that date to when I want it to happen. But I also say I can choose to clone the checklist items, and if there are any contributors, I can also clone those as well. So quickly loading in those milestones, what that's going to do is load in the milestones, the actions, the checklist items, the contributors. And now if I take a look at my Gantt chart, you'll see the entire project, including milestones, actions, checklist items, including any dependencies that I might already have. That's all been loaded in a matter of seconds. We've introduced a number of new enhancements to the scheduler to factor in various requirements. So one of those is the ability to include the duration of standard Salesforce events into the utilization calculations on the scheduler. So you've always been able to view the event records in context of the rest of your mission control actions, but they never actually impacted the actual utilization or the hours allocated. So now we've introduced that to where the duration of those events will be factored into the utilization. A couple of other things like minor changes. We've excluded cancelled actions from the scheduler. You can see here we've introduced a bit more visibility into the type of holiday, just to give you a clear insight into why that person may be unavailable. We've added in some other features that we'll run through in a moment, where we can actually save your own custom filters to save you having to keep applying them every time that you come back to the scheduler. And in addition to that, we've given you the ability to choose which fields are visible in the hover box, and we've added in a second set of allocation and utilization figures. So let's jump in and take a look in a bit more detail. So what you can now do is factor in the duration of those standard Salesforce events into the allocation and utilization calculations. So if we take a look at my record here, you can see I've currently got 81 hours allocated to me for the week, and you can see that I'm not currently looking at any events. So what I'm going to do is load the events in and see what impact that has. So what you can see now is I've had this additional event appear. So that's my board meeting scheduled for tomorrow. It's a 2-hour event, and therefore it's increased my allocation from 81 to 83. So it just helps give you a better reflection of the entire allocation of that person's capacity. Now, while we're looking at my capacity, as I just mentioned, we've added in a second set of utilization and allocation figures, and this came at the request of a customer. So what they found was just looking at the original figures that we had, where we were looking at the hours scheduled, didn't necessarily reflect everything that was going on. So, for example, they might have some overdue actions sitting from last week or the week before. They're not necessarily being displayed on our existing timeline, but they are still sitting there in the queue for this person to do. So what we've done is broken that up now into two sets of figures. So we've got our scheduled allocation and our scheduled utilization. So that's showing you the hours scheduled value for all of your actions that are currently in view. The remaining allocation will show you the hours remaining for everything that is currently not completed from the last date into going backwards. So ultimately, in this example here, I'm going to be looking at every single action that was due and has hours remaining, where the end date is less or equals to the 20th of September. And one other enhancement that I want to show you is obviously if I hover over any of these actions, obviously there's a number of fields in there to give you more insight into what that action is all about. Now you've got the ability now to actually use a field set to actually choose which fields that you want to add onto that hover box. So unfortunately, field sets can't be amended in Lightning Experience. So what I'll do quickly is just jump back into Classic. So I'm going to go to Setup and then Create, Objects, and on my action object, I'm going to scroll down and you'll see there is a field set called Scheduler Hover. So what I'm able to do is actually just edit that and then pick and choose which fields that I want to add in. So for example, if I drag in the action name, I might have the action owner, and then I'm just going to go and grab the end date, and I'll also grab the status. And I'll just grab the start date as well. So if I save that now, then I go back to the scheduler. You can see now how I've overridden the fields that are being displayed in that hover box. And those same fields will be visible if I was to switch back to Lightning Experience as well. So the final enhancement I want to show you that we've made to the scheduler is the custom filters. So again, very often we found that customers were saying that they'll often come to the scheduler and the first thing they do is apply a filter. And it would be really good if they could if the scheduler could remember their preference there. So what we've done is built in the ability to actually save your own filters. So what I can do just normally, as I normally would, is apply my filters. So I might say, okay, well, I'm looking for someone on the consultants team and I need them to have this skill and I need them to have this skill. So I can apply that filter as normal. That's going to show me my set of results. But now over on the right hand side here, I've got the ability to actually see any existing filters that I might have already created. And if I want to save this filter as a new stored filter, I can just click on the save link there. And then I can say, okay, this is consultants with ADM 201 and HTML. So I've now managed to save that as a persistent filter for myself. Now these custom filters are user specific, and but the benefit is if I go away from the if I navigate away from the scheduler. So let's just jump back onto the console, and then if I return to the scheduler, that setting will be remembered. So if I now show you, it's actually only loading the people that fit within that criteria. So I've been able to actually automatically load in my preferred settings. So obviously I can build up multiple different filters just by changing my requirements and saving a new one. If I do need to delete anything, I can just delete them from there as well. So taking a look at the enhancements that we've made to the whiteboard, there's just a few additional features that have been added. So a couple of things. The time log clock icon will now display red as it's shown here. That will display red when you're actively tracking time against that action. Otherwise, it will be displayed in the normal grey color. So just to give you a quick visual indicator that you're tracking time on that action. In a similar fashion, we've changed the colors of the end date warning icons. So you can see here, this example, it's red because it's actually overdue, and this one is amber because it's approaching within the next 2 days. And equally, rather than cluttering up the complete column with lots of end date warnings, once the action has been set to complete, the end date warning will be removed altogether. So a couple of other things, we've added in some additional filters, and we've also added in the ability to save your own custom filters. So again, let's jump in and take a look. So just to confirm there, you can see here how I've got my red icons, and you can see my amber icons. And over here, I'm currently tracking time on this action, so it's highlighting red for ease of identification. So if I scroll up to the top, so what I've got the ability to do is if I click into the filters, you'll see a couple of new things. What I've also got now is the ability to filter down based on the project category field. So I could say only show me client projects or marketing, or obviously these categories are specific values to your system. The other option is you could be looking at all actions where a specific skill is required. So I could filter down and say, show me all actions that require HTML. Now, the other option is, again, similar to the scheduler, we can now save our filters. So, for example, if I come along and say, show me any action where I am the action owner or where I am a contributor, and what I'm going to do is save that and just say, these are my actions. So save that, and then I will apply that filter. And that's going to remove everything from the whiteboard where I'm not responsible for it as either an action owner or a contributor. And again, those filters are persistent. So the next time I come to the whiteboard, it will be showing up as having had that filter applied. Now, each of those filters can be, again, they can be deleted. You can create as many filters as you need. And again, just to remind you that those filters are user specific. We've also made a number of small enhancements to the Gantt chart. So a few things here. We've added in record prefix icons to each of the rows, just to give you that quick identification of what record you're actually looking at. We can also add in and edit existing checklist items now. There are a few additional filter options, and another request from a customer where they were sometimes getting caught out by having added new records or made some changes, but then not actually committed that by clicking the master save button. So we've just put a warning icon there if you've got some unsaved records. Again, another request from a customer. They wanted to be able to visualize where today was on the Gantt chart, so we've just added a timeline in there, and then few settings around the data column, like the columns that in the data table, as well as being able to now access the resource assignment wizard from the action, as well as a quick collapse feature. So again, let's jump in and take a look at those in a bit more detail. So first of all, if I take a look down the left-hand side, you'll notice now I have these icons just to help me understand which record I'm looking at. So this is obviously a project, a milestone, an action, and a checklist item, and then an individual milestone deadline. So just to help you quickly visualize what record you're looking at. Now, we also have the ability to now add new checklist items or edit existing checklist items. So if I want to add a new checklist item, I can click on the button here and then just put in the details of what that checklist item needs to be and who's going to be responsible for it. So add that to the list. So now I've been able to add that. What I can also do is double click onto any existing record and obviously make changes if I need to. We've also introduced a number of new filter options. So if I click on the filters button, you'll see obviously I'm selecting a number of projects here. But if I'm currently selecting based on project name, but I've now got a lot more options here. So previously we only had project name or category. And now it will also pick up any custom pick list that you've added into your own system. But in addition to that, you can now filter based on account, contact, opportunity, project owner, or any other lookup field that you may have added. So for example, if I switch over to account, that's going to allow me to quickly filter down based on an account. So I could say, show me every single project that I've got for DPL logistics. Now, as I mentioned just a moment ago, we've also added in this warning icon. So that just lets me know that I have unsaved records on the Gantt chart. So if I was to navigate away without actually clicking this save button, then that new record would actually be lost. The timeline, obviously, you can see my today timeline, so it just gives me an indication of where everything's sitting in relation to today. And the other things that we've added are a number of enhancements to the actual data table. So one of the requests that we had from customers was you were always able to extend the width of these columns. But every time you came back to the Gantt chart, those width preferences were never remembered. So what we've now done is set those as a persistent setting for you. So now every time I come back to the Gantt chart, the width of my my record name column will be set as it is here. The other thing is you've got the ability to choose which of these fields you're actually displaying on the data table. So now we've got this settings section here where we can customize the grid. So if I click on that, you'll see I can pick and choose from the fields that are there. I might not be interested in seeing work days, or for some reason I might not want to look at the end date. So if I just update those, you'll see that they've been they've been removed. So then again, that's a persistent setting. So the next time I come back to the Gantt chart, that will be remembered as my preference. If I want to add them back in, again, just doing the reverse there by adding them straight back in. Now, we also have the ability to access the resource assignment wizard. So if I double click into an action, you'll see what I can do is obviously I can see the owner of that action, but I'm also able to access the resource assignment wizard directly from the Gantt chart now. So if I need to pull in additional resources, I can be leveraging the resource assignment wizard from the Gantt chart. And another really cool feature, when you're looking at the standalone Gantt chart, where I'm looking at multiple different projects, what I've got now is the ability to quickly collapse all of my milestones and actions. So if I click that, you'll notice that it just quickly collapses all of the detail. So I just get that high-level summary view of all of my projects. And then if I want to expand it again, it's simply a quick expansion, quick click to expand it all again. So quick way of either looking at the detail or looking at the high level summary. So in Mission Control, you've already got the ability to archive an entire project once it's complete, so you can remove it from things like the whiteboard and the timesheet and the scheduler and so on. But we've had a request from some clients where they might have some longer running projects, and they don't want everything that's already been done to still be cluttering up the scheduler or the whiteboard. So what we've introduced is the ability to archive individual milestones within a project. So there's a new field that's been added to the milestone object that you'll need to add to your page layout. But ultimately, if you set that archived checkbox to be true on the milestone, what that will do is actually remove the milestone and all related actions and checklists from key pages such as the whiteboard or the overview tab of the project overview, the timesheet, the scheduler, create actions page, and the daily digest as well. Now, obviously, all of the records still are there in the objects. They're just being hidden from those key pages. We've added a couple of enhancements to the checklist items feature within Mission Control. So one of those is we've added two new fields onto the action object that show you how the total number of checklist items and the completed checklist items. So they're two fields that you'll want to add to your action page layout, so you can keep a track at that action level what's been done. But in addition to that, we've actually made the manage checklists component available via Salesforce One, and you can see from the screenshots here what I've done is added the manage checklists in the bottom left corner. I've added that to to my page layout in the Salesforce One and Lightning Experience actions. And by clicking that, what that does is opens up the Manage Checklists component, and I can add new checklists. I can tick existing ones off. So I'm able to actually use that while I'm out and about, being mobile via Salesforce One. So looking at the final few minor enhancements that we've made as part of this release, we've got the ability now to create new records directly from the project overview page. Now, unfortunately, that feature is only available within Lightning Experience due to a Salesforce limitation. However, we will be monitoring that feature to see if it can become available in Salesforce Classic going forward as well. We've also got an add action component that has been added to the trackpad. We now have the ability to update the action status while we're logging time, and we've addressed a known issue on the chatter feed post. When you post something to the chatter feed on an action or a milestone, that can be rolled up to the project, and the result meant that the roll up post was actually getting tagged with some HTML tags on it. So not very pleasant to the eye. So what we've done is just address that issue, and the post roll up will be formatted correctly without those HTML tags now. So let's just dive in quickly one last time and take a look at a few of these enhancements. So on the project overview page, you can see I've got a new button here. If I click that, that's going to allow me to create a new milestone. If I hover over, if I click on one of those buttons, I can create a new action. If I go through to each of the key tabs for time logs, expenses, I've got the ability to click on new to create any one of those records. Now, as I mentioned, we've also, while logging time, we now have the ability to change the status. So, for example, if we know the time that we're logging actually means that we've resulted in completing this action, we could be marking the action off as complete at the same time. And then finally, we've added in the add action component onto the trackpad. Now again, this will automatically become available for all roles as part of the install script. And if you want to remove this component from the trackpad for individual roles, then you would simply just manage the permissions on their role record. But again, you can see I can set the project, the milestone, who the owner is. I can select the status. I can choose the start and end dates, put in my details for my action name, my billable and non-billable hours, and then create the action. So quick way of just being able to add a new action without having to stray too far from the project overview page. Well, thank you guys for watching the What's New webinar. I hope you're as excited as we are over all of the new features that are coming our way. Here's the release dates. So as of Monday, the 11th of September, it will be available on the App Exchange for you to manually upgrade. So you can simply go to the App Exchange, click the Get It Now button, and you'll be able to install the latest features. We will be automatically upgrading all sandbox environments on the 16th of September, and on the 23rd of September, it will be automatically pushed out to all production environments. As always, obviously, if you've got any questions, feel free to get in touch. You can do so by emailing support@aprica.com.au, and we'll certainly welcome any feedback that you've got on this release or any ideas for future inclusion. Thanks, guys. Bye.